Welcome back to our series. This is our story. This is our song. And I am so excited to introduce our special guest for today, Miss Helena Brown. Helena Brown is known for her stunning large round sound and steely velvety timbre. Her most recent role was as Lucia in Terence Blanchard's Champion, and she also performed in Ricky Ian Gordon and Lynn Nottage's Intimate Apparel at the Lincoln Theater. Miss Brown was Donna Elvira in Roja Lyrica and Div Aria productions of Don Giovanni, as well as Serena and Strawberry Woman in Porgy and Bess on the New York Harlem Theater's European tour. And without further ado, here is Miss Helena Brown. Thank you for joining me today. So let's start our discussion by going into your background and how you got into opera.
Oh gosh, I feel like I've been explaining that a lot lately, especially since we just opened X, the Life and Times of Malcolm X on Friday at the Metropolitan Opera. I am in the ensemble, I have a little solo, and it's been quite a labor of love, but especially as I'm meeting new people, I've been explaining this story a lot, so I'm trying to figure out the best way to redact it. I know we only have so much time, but how did I get into opera? I was what we call a late bloomer, and I was essentially voluntold that it was for me to have an opera career, and I had no idea what anyone was talking about. So this only came to be in college. I went to what used to be Randolph-Macon Women's College before I transferred to Hollins University in my sophomore year up to graduation. And I was going with the intent of doing a poli sci major with pre-med as a backup because I said, that's a good fallback. I can become a neuroscientist. We got this. Let's go. Very ambitious. Um, so I needed some electives and I did a little bit of choir in high school, but I wasn't one of the frontline kids. I didn't really know what that was about. I didn't ever do auditions, really. I didn't know. But this was going to be my first audition for choir just to take it as an elective. And I thought, oh, okay, that's a lot of pressure. I don't know what to do with this. But I did it. And I entered into the non-music majors section. And the choir director, whose name is Randall Spear, he was so nice. He said, well, first of all, that was great, but you're in the wrong section. You should be in the music majors section. And I said, okay, hold on, wait. No, I'm not a music major. I'm a poli sci major. I'm planning to become a lobbyist or maybe a diplomat. I just need this as an elective. Clearly, you've had voice lessons before. And I said, what is that? What do you do with that? And he's like, you haven't had voice lessons? I was like, what do you even do with that? Do you just stand up and sing? He confirmed that yes, that's what happens. A little bit more than that, but we start with that. I said, oh, that doesn't sound so fun. That doesn't sound entertaining. I don't know. I don't know. I had no idea what was going on. And he eventually convinced me to try some voice lessons, and I got a scholarship for them for my undergraduate career, which is amazing. That is not an opportunity that comes by so lightly, right? So I took it seriously. I tried it. I fell in love with it. I caught the bug. And he started to introduce me to people that I had seen before, but didn't understand the significance, such as Catherine Battle, Jesse Norman, Shirley Verrett. And he said, when I hear your voice, I hear an early version of these people. And I know what he was getting at with that. I am my own artist, I have my own sound, but he helped me to identify with some people who looked like me, which is why I think it worked. Music isn't for me, it's not for us, especially coming from my mom's side. We're a family of immigrants. My mom immigrated when she was in her teens I believe. And we have been trying to make it. And one thing that we thought would be good for upward mobility is higher ranking professions, a doctor, a lawyer, maybe even a writer. I've always had like a gift with writing and the written word, but
Mm-hmm.
not a musician. Even though my grandfather was a musician, he was a saxophone player. He's the one who raised a bunch of money, went through the back doors of the Waldorf Astoria to play with his band, and then he sent that money down to Caracu in Grenada,
Mm.
where my family was. And eventually we had enough money to come up to New York. But that wasn't sustainable past that time. Risk saying, maybe I can double major in both, but eventually the love of music, I mean, it's very compelling. So I stuck with it and I said, I think there's something to it when I sing and I start to socialize with people and I get to talk about some of the issues that I wish I could talk about in my poli sci classes. Art is such a political way of being, and that's how I got into this now. That's a bit lengthy. I'm sorry.
Oh, this is all great. I just love hearing the evolution of how you got into music in the first place. And also, I think it's really inspiring that at first you didn't think music was a career for you, but then the love of opera just really unfolded for you, which I think is amazing.
It took a bit, to be like immigrant first gen kid and
Yes.
choose something so risky that's not necessarily approved. And, are you going to be a starving and struggling artist? For Black folk, it's going to be much harder. I know, but I'm different. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just not going to subscribe to like these little traps that have been set.
Yes.
And I'm so glad. I think that's why I'm here now.
Absolutely. And you actually touched a little bit on Terence Blanchard's new works, which came out recently. And can you talk a little bit more about what it was like to get the call that you would be one of the lead roles for the Terence Blanchard opera? And what does it mean for you to be a part of an opera that is centered around a black person's life?
My gosh. Well, one, I was absolutely thrilled to be part of the production period because one thing that's good to know, and I'm not sure if it's fleshed out enough in my bio, but it's in social media, is that I work full time in the chorus at the Metropolitan Opera and I get to do solos as they come up.
Mm.
That was my biggest solo to date, and I auditioned for it as we were rehearsing for Champion. One thing that was so great about it is that that role, Lucia, did not exist before the Met. It was that the score was fleshed out, and that particular character was written and fleshed out for this production. And
Oh.
so I helped to originate the role. That is the knowledge that I have right now. If that is not the case, then I'm happy to be corrected. But based on what I've heard from administration and some other people, that was the first time.
Wow.
So it wasn't just an honor to be part of this sort of storytelling, but to originate it and be one of the people that helped bring it to life is really something,
Yeah.
especially considering the story um, I was mentioning before of my family on my mom's side of immigrants and coming from the Caribbean, Grenada.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some identification there. There's a familiarity.
Yes.
And I really wanted to honor that story during that time. My mom grew up during that time. She was in New York during that time. She remembers that fight. And so I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is getting so close to home. I have to tell this story. I have to do this audition. I have to really honor these people and this Black experience. And even with all of the trauma that comes with it and how that affects us viscerally,
Mm-hmm.
it's still so important to put it out there Terrence Blanchard was there for the entire process. He's amazing, so supportive. And it's also amazing to get some live edits in real time. I don't mean like a score on a program. I mean, he's in the room and he says, how about we try this? Or, I know that was not what I wrote and you just did that. Let's do what you did instead. There are all sorts of instances like that. So it was a very organic process. And I think that helped with the truth telling.
Yes.
And I hope that more people can get experiences like that. I mean, we're talking like back in Mozart's time when he had live musicians to try out his stuff. I was thinking, oh, this is what it must have been like.
Great. Yeah, that's amazing that you had the opportunity to work directly with Terrence Blanchard and work together in transforming the opera into even more than he could have anticipated. I saw that you have a lot of international experience, so could you talk a little bit about what it's like traveling to various countries and how do you maintain a healthy balance? I
remember still, I think I need to start writing it down. I used to keep a little bit of a journal to kind of keep track of what's going on so that I don't lose those moments. One person who told me to really keep track of what I'm doing in my career is Mignon Dunn. She was one of my teachers in grad school. And I remember when I would go to her apartment to have lessons, she also asked me for help, like organizing some of her old programs. And she also just wanted to show me what that world was like. And I remember little notes, like in her handwriting on some programs, a bunch of programs from all over the world, just documenting the journey. I need to do more of that. So thank you for helping to be the catalyst. See, I have been to Austria. I have been to Scandinavia, specifically Denmark. I've been to Geneva, Switzerland. I've been to France. I've been to the Netherlands. And most of that was on tour for Porgy and Bess, which was such an amazing experience. It's part of my formative experience, not just as a musician, but as a Black artist and just as a Black woman in the world. Just based on like how I grew up, where I went to school, I didn't have a lot of fellowship, and hopefully you know what I mean when I say fellowship. Just that sort of familial experience within the culture. I didn't really understand within myself what it meant to be for the culture until I could be with a group of people who were doing things that I was doing. I was always kind of one of the odd ones out. I went to, a primarily white high school. I just didn't know what it was like until I really went on this tour and I got to see that there wasn't one way to be Black, because I had been invalidated my entire life, but that was really the first time I wasn't. And I was welcomed in, and they were like, your unique voice, it is valid. We are all part of this community together. Porgy just kind of sets that up typically. Gershwin helped to lay a foundation, and then the artists who keep that work living on, they create the culture, they create the fellowship that we love to see, and that sells out theaters all the time. It sucks you in once you have other people there, and we all know who we are, and we're all helping each other succeed. Then to explore the world with that new lens was really amazing. Going to Geneva and feeling a little more respected as an artist, because singing, opera, music, it is much more ingrained in society in a way, especially when you have musicians like in Germany with the Fest contracts. You have benefits. It's less of a rarity to be a musician and have a livable career, to have livelihood attached to it. I got to see examples of that and talk to people who were living that sort of life and respected what I was doing. So I would say that that emboldened me.
Mm-hmm.
I got to speak the different languages, I got to practice, I got to not just speak it, but live in it so
Yes.
that you really understand and embody the inflection and some of the culture, and then you put some of yourself into it, and then it just creates like this delicious stew.
I love that. A delicious stew.
I guess I'm thinking about some of the stews that I've had abroad, but it's kind of like what I say to some of my students when we talk about acting and how you
Mm-hmm.
bring yourself to the character, how you create the character on stage or even just in the room diagram. And let's say they're colors. You have red and you have blue. And in the middle, that's the character, that's the purple. You, the character. Yeah. So the stew is purple. I don't know. I'm just making sure. Well, it it's a hodgepodge of things. I'm not just going to talk about diet or sleep. One thing that I found especially meaningful and actionable was to take care of my mental health. So I mentioned the fellowship part, the validity, the feeling of community. It
Right.
is so important to feel treasured and valid where you are, even if that's just yourself bringing that into the room. I would say that comes first.
Mm.
Because if you don't have that, it becomes such an uphill battle. It's so very hard. And it does reflect in the voice, it does reflect in the character work. And I'm just so glad that I had that opportunity to discover more of myself, allowing myself to be vulnerable and having people that I could trust and on whom I could fall back. Additionally, I am really about fruits and vegetables. I like my urban remedies. I have like a little apothecary that I travel with and that I have at home. And as I travel in different places, I pick up different customs, like different remedies, and that's really cool. I
Yeah.
find that when I eat similarly to some of the people in the place where I am, I feel better wherever you are. You're taking in some of the pollen, some of the allergens, you are training your immune system. I guess it could be the same with food. I'm
Yeah.
not an 8 hours of sleep sort of gal. 7 hours is my sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
I try to get my 7 hours as much as possible. Sometimes that doesn't work out, and I find rest in different ways. I love an opportunity to nap. Whew.
Yes, talk about it. I literally just took a nap.
See? You see? Hey, naps are life. There's also study that it helps to increase your neuroplasticity. So it really helps with your memory, your retention, the learning. Depending on how long you're napping and when you're napping, I would say it helps with your melatonin and it will help to balance you in general. Again, it depends. There are
Yeah.
lots of studies about napping. It's good for the voice. As a professional now at the Met, I take naps because we have long days where we have rehearsal and then performance in the same day, many
Mm-hmm.
hours. Sometimes it's a 12 to 14-hour day altogether, and I bake in my naps. So I am getting off my soapbox about naps now. Let's see, what else? Uh, I believe in more mindful and intuitive eating. And I also really believe in functional movement and strength training. I've been more focused on the functional strength training. I've done powerlifting for a number of years of my life, on and off.
Oh wow.
And I've been challenged by some folks with the belief that when you lift weights as a woman, you're not going to be able to sing correctly, nor will you have kids. Let's just throw that out, okay? You lift a certain way. If you're doing, squats with a bar, you're going to create so much tension in the neck that you won't be able to sing. There are ways to counteract that so that that is not happening. Mindfulness in all of your practices, and you don't have to be perfect. You pick up on things as you go and you listen to your body. But as of late, functional movement has been so important because one thing that we don't talk about is how static our movement is on stage, and that it takes quite a bit of energy and muscle expenditure to do that, to just
Yes.
stand in a pose, a stylized pose, and breathe deeply and expand and contract.
Right.
Takes a lot, and you compensate in different areas of the body, and next thing you know, you might have tension here just from that. You might have tension in the hips. I get that a lot. You might have tension in your knees and ankles, and you're more susceptible to different injuries. So I try to be mindful of that, stretch, strengthen certain areas, do resistance bands. I recommend that.
I couldn't agree more. And I also wanted to ask you, what are some steps that should be taken in opera to appeal to various demographics? I know that's a loaded question.
One thing I do as an artist and advocate is to speak on topics like this, so I know exactly why you're asking me that. Okay. To appeal to different demographics. Well, where are we? Like where is the opera house or the organization or where is the production happening? That's one thing that I think about because you want to reflect the community. If you're not really reflecting them, or if you're not bringing in something from, like, let's say the most urban areas that are nearby, I think you are doing a disservice community wise. So
Yeah.
I start to think about community. If the community is not that diverse, broaden a bit. Bring in people with different lifestyles and different cultures, and be open to learning something new and then passing that on. I think that's one way that you can just appeal to different demographics. I don't have all the answers. There are a lot of demographics that are not represented, that are not at the forefront of my radar because, I'm limited. Humans can work in seasons. It can be difficult.
Right.
I might learn something new next week that, oh, we should have been focusing on this all along, but I am open to learning that and advocating for that. I would love for people to embody that attitude, and then I think we'll have more progressive and forward-thinking organizations.
Definitely. And thinking about America as a whole, and you touched on this earlier that during your international travels, they valued your story and your experiences and actually applied that to the performances themselves. I think that experience is very different in America when in reality, America is a melting pot of so many diverse cultures and backgrounds. So I think that should be a reflection in the operatic stages.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, please show the melting pot. And I mean, in the entertainment industry, we love to see things that we don't really know about.
Yes.
Why we have had such a problem with exoticism throughout the ages. And the real problem with that, in my opinion, is the intent and the executions. With the intent, it's like, what's the purpose? Are you making fun of it, or are you trying to show people something beautiful and just sharing that experience? As well, who is it for? Is it
Right.
just for people who look like the people who are bringing it there? For example, is it just for white audiences, like white performers and white audiences? Like, is that all that it is? Or is it really for everyone? And then, if it's for everyone, how do you think they're going to respond to that? How are you including them and how they are represented? That's part of the intent for me, as well as the execution. Are
Yeah.
you listening to the feedback? Are you using resources in order to really well represent that feedback and the content. I
Yeah.
think I should commit this to paper. I think it's a multi-pronged approach, but
Mhm.
as long as we're mindful of those things and we can answer those questions and be open to a little bit of push and pull, I think we're in a good place.
Absolutely. And I'm so sad to say, but we only have a few more minutes together. I've really enjoyed this conversation with you today, and I know a lot of people that are watching this will be greatly impacted by this interview. So, really quick, because I know we're running out of time, just let the young people know one message that you want to leave them, and let them know where they can find out about your upcoming engagements.
Um, Drink water.
So
Drink
true.
Drink water. Sometimes I believe in drinking water and minding my business, but I'm just going to say drink water right now. And also look out for each other. You know,
Mm.
I do believe in putting your oxygen mask on first, but I also believe, no, not even but, it's a yes and. Yes, and look out for other people. As you know, I'm really into advocacy, into supporting other artists' livelihoods, just lifting everybody up because I want everybody to be great. I don't believe in the scarcity mindset. I think that that is an act of a supremacist structure, and I'll just leave it at that for now
Mhm.
because that's going to
Mhm.
be another interview, maybe a
Right?
podcast, who knows? But I think we need to leave ourselves a little more open to some possibilities within ourselves as well as other people. And when we do that, I think we create even better art. We can do that. We can do that. Continue to ask questions. There shouldn't be secrecy around pay and about traditions and culture. For example, with different organizations, there are some things that are just like known. There's a lot of institutional knowledge. I do not believe in gatekeeping those things, and I don't think that other people should prescribe to that.
But before we go, please let us know about your upcoming engagements and where we can find them. I want the people to know.
Yeah, well, I am active on the Book of Faces. I know that's old. I'm also on the gram. I'm on
Okay.
Insta. I'm on TikTok. I'm making little videos, and I'm always like watching other people's videos and seeing how the community is responding, making new content. I love that. You'll find stuff about me on there. I'm trying to boost information about all sorts of productions and sorts of concepts. So, yeah, find me there. My website, it does exist. It is active. It needs to be updated a little bit, but we're working on it. We have some things coming through soon.
All right, and I thank you so much for joining me today. You've been amazing.
Thank you.